On September 20th of 1940, at the height of a very suspenseful game of chess between Begin and Eldad, the situation on the board tending somewhat in Eldad's favor, three agents of the NKVD, this is basically the KGB of the Soviets, showed up and arrested Begin. Aware of what awaited him, he made sure to polish his shoes, put on a tie and a clean suit before leaving the house. He also took a Bible with him. In the Lekushki prison, Begin was repeatedly interrogated, especially about his activities as the Beitar Netziv. He was accused of having served British imperialism and a charge that would later bring him a smile on his lips. The verdict read out to him noted that the Special Advisory Committee of the People's Commissariat for Internal Affairs finds Menachem Wolovich Ben Ze'ev Begin to be a dangerous element to society, and decrees that he would be imprisoned in a correctional labor camp for a period of 8 years. Begin was held in Vilnius until June of 1941. Then he was sent to do hard labor in Pechora, a work camp that's in northern Russia. After the Germans attacked Russia, the Polish prisoners were released in order to enable them to join the war effort against the invader. Begin, never physically robust, returned from Siberia ill and exhausted. However, with the help of his friends, he managed to enlist in the Free Polish Army under the command of General Anders, together with whom he reached the Free State of Palestine in 1942 via Iran and then Iraq. Many of the new recruits deserted the army upon their arrival, but Begin decidedly refused to follow suit. "I swore allegiance to the Polish army and I will not desert," he resolutely told his friends when he was reunited with them on Jewish soil. Begin served in the Polish army for about a year and a half with the rank of corporal. He acted as an interpreter in Jerusalem headquarters and lived in the city's Rehavia neighborhood from mid-1942 on. He also served shortly as Beitar's Netzev in Palestine and maintained close ties with the Irgun. During World War II, the organization took a respite in its war against the British Mandate in order to rally against the common German enemy. And in 1941, the organization's activities reached their nadir, their peak, especially after its leader David Raziel was killed. It was Yaakov Meridor who succeeded Raziel as the commander of the organization, who told his fellow commanders, "Begin is the man. We hope to see him leading the crucial war that the Irgun is about to launch." At the initiative of Aryeh ben Eliezer, and with the help of Mark Kahan, negotiation began with the Polish army regarding the release of 5 Jewish soldiers from the army, including Begin, in return for which members of the Irgun delegation would lobby in Washington for the Polish forces. The negotiations lasted many weeks until finally they met with success, and the Polish commander announced the release of 4 of the soldiers. Fortunately, Begin was among them. His release at the age of 30, Begin was now faced with what perhaps was the most important chapter in his life. He removed his Polish army uniform and became a soldier without a uniform, an underground fighter in the the former corporal was now the commander of the Irgun, commanding the Irgun. Begin hesitated to yield to the decision of the Irgun command to appoint him commander of the organization, but the moment he uttered the words, "I accept," the Irgun took on a new spirit. It was completely reorganized. Begin was at the helm, Mirador was his deputy, and under them was the Irgun High Command, which had been reduced to 3 officers: Aryeh ben Eliezer, Eliyahu Lankin, and Shlomo Levi. A short time later, on February 1st, 1944, the Irgun published its first declaration, which clearly reflected the unique style and spirit of Ben Ze'ev, Begin's first nom de guerre. It was a proclamation of revolt against the British government. At the same government that Begin, now the man leading the struggle against the British Mandate, had been accused of serving by the Soviets just 4 years earlier. To the Hebrew nation in Zion was heading the proclamation of a first of a long series of proclamations, declarations, and communiques made by the Irgun, written by Begin. In it, he accused the British authorities of striving to destroy the last vestige and hope of the state of Zionism and betraying the Jewish people, and that consequently a war to the bitter end was no longer avoidable. We will fight. Every Jew in the homeland will fight. The God of Israel, the God of hosts, will come to our aid. There will be no retreat, freedom or death, said the proclamation, and the operations followed soon after. His army numbered no more than 1,000 persons, and of them only 200 were actual frontline fighters. But in 1947, the ranks had grown to 5,000. This army carried out 300 military-style attacks in the 4 years under Begin's command, and great caution and profound discretion were exercised regarding all of them. 3 of those actions stand out in particular: the bombing of the southern wing of the King David Hotel in Jerusalem, which served as the central command for the British Mandatory Government, storming the Accra prison to release Irgun and Lehi prisoners held there, and the conquest of Jaffa. Begin did not personally participate in the fighting. He was in charge of leading the political struggle using military means. His main role was to outline the policies of the underground, win public support, and run an effective organization. He was renowned for his concern for the lives and well-being of his fighters, and he agonized over those that fell in battle, were wounded or imprisoned, and exiled from the country to the camps of Africa. Most painful were the hangings. Begin and the other members of the Irgun made every effort to save the lives of the Irgun fighters that had been sanctioned to death by hanging, as in the case of Dov Gruner. But after Begin, with a heavy heart, gave the order to hang 2 British sergeants in retaliation for the hangings of Weiss, Habib, and Nakar, the hangings by the British stopped. Begin set down a very strict guideline in the Irgun's war, which was directed entirely against the British Army, its facilities and soldiers, the police and the secret police as well, and other official representatives of the mandatory government. The civilian population was completely excluded from this game and was not targeted. Even if civilians occasionally came unintentionally in the line of fire, the members of the organization were pursued by the organized Jewish settlement of pre-state Israel, especially by the Haganah, but Begin forbade his people to retaliate, and in doing so prevented a civil war from breaking out a number of times. During the Saison, the open season, when members of the Irgun were captured by members of the Haganah and handed over to the British from late 1944 to mid-1945, and in the Altalena affair in June of 1948. You can Google, I'll try to put a link here about the Altalena. Tragic story. Rabin orders against Begin. Okay, despite the rivalry, Begin advanced the concept of a united front, and his efforts produced results. For 9 months, the Jewish resistance movement, an alliance made up of the Haganah, the Irgun, and Lehi, struck victoriously at the British. Only a Black Saturday and the bombing of the King David Hotel caused the leadership of the Jewish community in the pre-state of Israel to reconsider the framework and cut all ties with the dissenters, as the Irgun and Lehi were then called. In a white paper in May 15th of 1948, the British admitted that they had been unable to further endure the activities of the underground, and that the decision to leave Palestine and to give up their mandate was due to their loss of control and the deaths of over 300 British soldiers and security personnel. The revolt contributed to the battle to liberate the land of Israel from foreign British control on June 3rd of 1948. An agreement was signed to transfer the Irgun units to the IDF, which was the Israeli Defense Force. The Altalena affair. After arriving at previously agreed upon Kfar Avidkin Beach, according to the decision reached by the senior officials of the Ministry of Defense, the Irgun arms ship, the Altalena, having sailed from France with 900 fighters on board and with a large cache of arms and ammunition in its hold, was given an ultimatum to immediately hand over the arms to the government, despite an understanding reached earlier with the government officials. Stunned at the incomprehensible demand, Begin boarded the ship, which then sailed to the Tel Aviv beach. He was on board when the order was given to shell it from the beach, and the ship began to burn. He ordered that no one return fire from the ship. He did earlier when the ship was sniped by small arms fire from the Palmach headquarters. Later, Eliyahu Lankin, the captain of the Altalena, would relate, when the flames spread throughout the ship, the rescue boats began to arrive from the beach, mostly rafts, whose sailors were risking their lives under the barrage of bullets. They yelled, "Where is the old man? Bring the old man." They were referring to Begin, who at the time was doing whatever he could to get the wounded off the ship. Only after he had removed the last of the wounded did he agree to evacuate himself from the Altalena. The Altalena affair, which occurred after the establishment of the Jewish state, preceded the dissolution of the Irgun, which had begun in June of 1948. When its units were absorbed into the IDF, Begin's final official announcement to his comrades and troops was broadcast the day after the declaration of the state, on May 15th of 1948. From the Irgun radio station, in his speech, which he noted as the most important of all speeches he ever gave, he said, "Our only reward is that we are privileged to see the nation truly liberated and all fighting together for its freedom. Our true reward will be when we are able, if we return alive from the front, to freely travel among the cities, mountains, and valleys of our land, to see Jewish children playing without fear, and above the heads of the beloved toddlers will fly a plane that is a Jewish plane, and guarding them will be a soldier who is a Jewish soldier, and the distant sound of a train will be heard. It will be a Jewish train. Ah, can there be any greater joy than that?" And he continued, "The state of Israel has been established. We must not forget our homeland has not yet been liberated. Those who do not recognize our right to the entire homeland do not recognize our right to any part of it. And we will not relinquish our natural eternal right. Israeli soldiers will yet fly our flag in the Tower of David. Our plows will yet cultivate the fields of Gilad." Founder under the Herut movement. Begin left the underground at the age of 35, and a new chapter had opened in his life, the political one. He founded and headed a new political party, Herut, based on the principles and ideals of the Irgun. The first Knesset elections held in 1949, his movement won 14 seats. Begin, now a member of the Knesset and the chief opponent to the ruling Mapai and other leftist parties, was one of the Knesset's most outstanding members in its history. Herut remained faithful to its principles and presented itself as an alternative to the socialist government headed by David Ben-Gurion. In 1961, Herut won 17 Knesset seats, and it became clear to Begin that his party itself would not be able to win enough seats to replace the government, and in 1965, Gahal was founded, a Herut liberals bloc which won 26 seats. And from 1973, the framework was further expanded to form a larger camp, the Likud, in which the followers of both Jabotinsky and Ben-Gurion had joined forces together. In the 1950s and 1960s, when Begin was head of the opposition to Ben-Gurion, life in the Knesset was never dull. The two constant rivals were sharply divided on almost every issue related to the past and present. Ben-Gurion, who coined the slogan, "Without Herut and Makai, the Israeli Communist Party," used a wide variety of epithets when referring to his great rival, and Begin soon as good as he got. Nevertheless, the rivalry did not prevent Ben-Gurion from inviting Begin to his home on the eve of the Sinai campaign in 1956 and revealing to him the details of the plan, which he kept from many of his cabinet ministers. On the other hand, it was Begin who, in May of 1967, during the nerve-wracking waiting period on the eve of the Six-Day War, proposed to the then Prime Minister Lev Eshkol to call in Ben-Gurion, the Prime Minister until 1963, to stand at the head of the National Unity Government. Ben-Gurion did not return to the premiership, but Begin, for the first time in his life, participated in a cabinet session in June 1st of 1969, and from June 5th on, following the Knesset approval, became a minister without a portfolio.